Weaving the rainbow in a tree landscape. So our lesson that we're going to do today is a weaving that includes landscape and tree, shape, form. We're going to learn about the warp and the weft and horizons. In our previous class, we studied the work of Vincent van Gogh. We learned about when he lived, when he died, and the type of paintings he painted. We focused on one of his more famous paintings, The Starry Night. We talked about the horizon line and we talked about the skyline. We talked about what kind of elements might have been included in his skyline, and then we decided what choices we would make to make our creative skylines. In his painting, he used the cypress tree, the church buildings, the buildings that surrounded it. We talked about the movement and the texture in his painting and how that created emotion. Some of the examples that the students had created. One student created one with a field. Another chose skyscrapers. This was possibly a cabin or a campsite, one of their favorite places to be. Another chose a castle. And another one chose to emulate or mimic Mr. Vincent with his church building and the movement in the sky. They had a lot of fun creating those landscapes. So in this next project, we are going to paint a landscape in the round on a Chinet plate, and the reason we're using a Chinet plate is that they're sturdy and they are going to become the base of our loom. So we're going to paint that landscape with paint, and using a paintbrush, we're going to use the tip of the paintbrush, and we're going to do the horizon lines, the mountains that we choose to do, the skyscrapers we might choose to do. You could have trees in Central Park where there is actually trees and then skyscrapers. It doesn't matter, but you get to make those choices where your tree is going to be. We're going to read The Weaving the Rainbow, a book by George Ella Lyon and illustrated by Stephanie Anderson. In this book, they have lots of opportunities to look at the pastures or the green grasses and the blue skies and the clouds that might be in there. The children chose to do skylines of their own on their looms, and these are some of their examples. One wanted a very colorful sunset. Another wanted skyline with clouds and a pasture with possibly dandelions or buttercups. Another chose maybe a darker sunset with some very colorful flowers in the front. And another one chose blue skies with green grass and a big field of dandelions. So, weaving the rainbow. How do you make a rainbow? If you are a weaver, you can make a rainbow with wool. But if you are a sheep, you can be the rainbow, and here's how. Standing at a fence, the weaver sees rainbow sheep grazing in her pasture. It is spring now. It is shearing time. So you can see the green pastures and the blue skies and the fence line and the white sheep. When they were born a year ago in the dark barn on a cold March night, when the weaver watched the mothers lick them clean for the first time, their coats were white. And they were white when she turned them out into April fields. And in July, when she washed and combed them and loaded them into the trailer for their trip to the state fair, they were white and bright, and they won first prize. But they were getting closer to the rainbow. So as you could see, the pastures green and the sky is blue. Fall brought their first shearing, and as the days turned cold, the winter wool grew in. It kept them warm right through the snow. Now that it's spring again, their coats are too hot, so the weaver pins each yearling between her legs and clips the rich wool close. It comes off in one piece, sheep-shaped. White and springy, this fleece, but carrying it from the pasture, the weaver sees rainbows. So she's already thinking up all the color that she can create. She combs the wool free of sticks and burrs and washes out dirts and stains and cards it till the strands all go the same way, and spins it, pulling and twisting a skein from her fluff till it's long and strong enough to weave. When the spinning is done, the weaver draws a plan. She makes her dyes from plants she has gathered, indigo, goldenrod, and madder. She is cooking up a rainbow in big pots. She soaks the wool like dyeing Easter eggs. When she gets the color she wants, she hangs the yarn to dry. She won't be making cloth to wear. She'll be weaving a picture, doing with wool what a painter does with paint. Next, the weaver warps her loom. She ties different colored yarns in the back beam, then pulls it strand by strand to the front. There she ties it again, making the warp. When it's time to weave deep blue, she'll wind that color on the shuttle, the way a painter dips her paintbrush in the paint. Then she guides the shuttle over and under the warp to make the weft. Finally, she begins, feet on treadles, hand on shuttle, back and forth from the wool of her white sheep. She weaves Kentucky pastures, green grass, evergreen, willow yellow, red bud, purple shadow, and shy sky blue. From wool looped across her hand, she weaves in lambs and their mamas. She's using the natural undyed wool to create the lamb shapes in her weaving. While sheep in rainbow pastures, she weaves white sheep. So once we have painted that landscape, making those choices as to what we would like, we're going to take our loom, which is that landscape, painted on the plate. Here I have an example of where we would like to cut those notches to create our tree shape on top of our landscape. We're going to take our thread or yarn that we're going to choose. This will be our warp. Whatever strings we put on the loom is our warp. Whatever strings we weave with is our weft. So in order to start out the loom, we're going to leave a little tail at the back. And we're going to go from the bottom to the top. And we're going to go back down to the bottom and over to the side, making X's. And we're going to keep going back and forth until it is completely covered in an X shape. So we're going to keep going back and forth. And we're going to tie those together at the back. So when it's completed, it looks like this. And it's tied at the back together. The reason we're going to go around the weaving in that X shape is because it's stronger. It won't, if we were to just go at the top and loop it back down, it would probably come off. And we don't want to do that. We want it as strong as we possibly can make it. So to begin, we're going to start at the trunk, and we're going to leave a little bit of tail at the back. I'm going to hold it and kind of go over the top. And in order to start weaving, we're going to go over, under, in a collection of threads we're going to collect and catch and weave together. And we're going to go over, under, a bunch at the bottom. And I'm going to explain some at the top. at the bottom, we want to just create this trunk-like form going in and out of all those threads collectively. To create the trunk form. And it can be organic in shape. And you want to use a Chinette plate because it will be sturdy enough to hold all this work that you're trying to create. So we're just going in and out to create that trunk form. Over, under, around, and about. You can wrap the warp with your yarn. But basically we just want to go over, under, around to create that trunk shape. At the top we're going to be a little bit more careful. And you can either start at the top or at the trunk. It doesn't matter. Pretty much they're going to have to meet in the center. And because we read the story about the rainbow, we can either choose to weave tree colors as brown and green, or we could get creative with our color choices and possibly instead of weaving the tree, we weave a rainbow. But our trunk is going to look like that. And now I have my tree colors for the top. Now in order to keep this secure, I'm going to stick that in one of those slots that I had cut and that the warp is being held by. So in order to start weaving the tree top, it's going to be a little bit more orderly than the bottom part. We want the tree to kind of have an organic texture to it, where it looks like a tree. And we're going to leave that and not worry too much about it. In the end, we'll probably just tuck it back behind the tree, like that. But for the top of the tree, we're going to start going under, over, under, over, under, over, under, and over. And we're going to push that up to the top. And we have to go back the other way. So we're going to go, because we went over this last string, we're going to go under, and then over, under, and then over, under, and then over, under, and over. And once you recognize that you're doing the opposite each time, you're going to fill in that tree shape at the top. And you're just going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, doing over, under, over, under, over, under, until you have filled up your tree shape at the top. And once it's completed, it'll look something like this, and this could actually be filled up more. And again, like I said, you can make those color choices of either a rainbow. You can make the choices of your skyline, because we learned all about skylines with Vincent. And that is weaving the rainbow on a landscape loom with a tree.